Sam, let's change the focus to building an ethical culture. And we have to start with I think, a dispiriting finding from your survey, which is even in good cultures, 39% of the respondents still say ethics takes a back seat. So, with that sort of framing the issue, what does a truly ethical culture look like? And why should you not stop at good, but really push to great?
Well, this sort of goes back to where we were before. And the reality is that there's too many organizations that are just focused on numbers and not people. And look, as a leader, you have a choice. You can either focus on the bottom line or you can focus on your team. You can't focus on everything, okay? But if you focus on your team and serve the team, then the team will focus on the bottom line. So if I focus on the bottom line and not my people, then I've got one set of eyes on the bottom line. If I focus on my team, I've got the whole team looking at the bottom line. And so it seems it's hard, believe it or not, for some leaders to understand that. And so they have grown up in the world of cliches, and they've heard the statements like, this isn't personal, it's business, or I pay you to do that, or I've got 37 headaches and each one has a first name. Those aren't leaders. You know, those are dictators. Those are people that nobody wants to work for. And so if you want to go for 100%, you be committed to it. You set the example and you accept nothing less than 100%. Now, none of us are perfect. We make mistakes. But if you make a mistake, then admit your mistake. Be transparent about it. Because one of the relational commitments is I'm not perfect and you're not perfect. It's I commit to the faults and failures as well as the strengths and successes, which says I'm not perfect. I don't expect you to be perfect, but I do expect us to be honest about our mistakes. And when we make a mistake, we fix it fast. So this really is the ultimate pressure on a leader. You want to get to 100%, the leader's got to make this mission critical. This is number one at the top of the list.
Sam, if you were asked to consult and you came into an organization that you found or felt like employees did not feel that there was a strong ethical culture, but management was willing to learn, they were willing to listen to you, and they were willing to implement strategies that you might suggest, what are some of the practical steps that a leader in such an organization could take to better align culture and ethics?
Where we always start is with the values. First of all, there needs to be a great set of values. We find most companies have a set of values. First of all, they don't know what they are. They're written on a piece of paper. They're on the website. They're not being lived. Second of all, just because you have great values doesn't mean you have a great set. So one of your values could be integrity, as is for me. But one value, a great value, doesn't make a great set. A great set has to connect to 4 specific areas that we teach. And when you have a great set, then the next thing is, are you living those values? Because it's lived values define the culture. So the next step is we need to establish the values in the senior leadership, and then we establish those values in leadership at levels below that, and then we disseminate the values throughout the organization. If you have a great set of values that connect to all 4 areas, which are foundational, the character of the organization, relational, both internal and external relationships like suppliers, professional, what is excellence here, and community values, how do we connect with and serve the community that we're in? If you have this great set of values, and the values are non-negotiable, that we live the values, period, no matter what. When you get to that level, then you're able to transform the culture. You're able to transform. Now this is not rocket science. This is not that complicated, but it's not easy. And the leader, at the end of the day, the leader has to be willing to stick the stake in the ground and say, we're going to live our values, period. I don't care if we have if we made $100 on a project and it costs us $1,000 to fix it, but that's what aligns with our values. That's what we're going to do. And as soon as you make that decision one time, everyone's eyes open up and they go, wow, she really means it. We're going to live this here. We had a client in communications industry. They had been incorrectly billing their clients for months on a service, and they went out to a client with a check for $100,000 and said, this is for the past X number of months. We made a mistake. It's a commercial relationship. We made a mistake, and this is your money. Now, that sent a statement throughout the entire organization that what our values are here. Not only that, a lot of people would have said, you know what, we found a mistake and we've overbilled you, so we're going to apply it to future bills. We'll give you a credit. And no, they didn't even do that. They went and put the money in their hand. Do they live their values? You bet they do.
Our friend Allison Van Hooser talks about leaders putting a stake in the ground. In the context of how you said putting the stake in the ground, can that stake be public so that the employees can see this is what our leader says and this is what we stand for?
It better be. It better be. See, when this telecommunications company I just shared with you, when they made that decision, and when someone saw the mistake and brought it to the CEO, she made a decision like that. There was no thought put into it. Because quite frankly, your values are every decision you ever need to make made in advance. It's just situations presenting themselves. All you have to do is apply the value. You already said, we're going to be honest. We're going to do what's right. We're going to contribute to our relationships. They already made that decision. So now when this popped up, there was no decision to make. It was obvious what they needed to do, and they just did it. That was a very public stake in the ground. Now, how public was it? Well, every employee of that organization knows what happened. They shared the story. They wanted everyone to know. The customer knows. Don't you think the customer shared the CEO of whoever they gave that check to? You don't think they told you're not going to believe what happened. So-and-so discovered that they overbilled us. We never even found it. They found it, and they came out and gave me a check for the money that they overbilled us. That goes into the community. I mean, you're not doing it for this reason, but think about the goodwill. Think about the advertising. Think about your name out on the street. Look what comes back. It's unbelievable.
Someone will move to the next slide, which shows 56% of employee respondents said the company does not align with their personal values versus, and that's in a poor company. And 50.5% said it was negative in a good company. What does this misalignment of personal values with company values do to employees within an organization?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, it's very difficult to live in organizational values unless you know how to live your values. But if your values don't align with the organization's values, how do you live the organization's values? And so the values aren't what, let's define what the values are. The values, in essence, what's accepted and what's repeated. That's what a company values. So, Tom, if I'm allowed to lie, cheat, and steal, and I can continue to get away with it, the company values an employee that can lie, cheat, and steal, get away with it, and put money on the bottom line. They value that. How do I know? Well, I exist. And so people need that alignment. That's why these people are leaving the companies. That's why they're departing and they're looking for other jobs, because the alignment isn't there. You want to attract and keep great people, you need to make sure that their values and your values are aligned and that they're positive values.
So we've got a little before or a little more than 10 minutes left. I wanted to open it up and ask if anyone had a question or comment. And if not, we'll keep going with some more dialogue between Sam and I.
There is a comment in the chat. It says, I think all comes down to people and finding truly authentic people. And I, that's from Lindsay, affectionately known as Schmitty. Because you're absolutely right. You know, it's like, but it takes a truly authentic leadership to really care about that. But if you hire slow and fire fast, and you hire to the values, and you look for truly authentic people who align with your values, you can teach them the job. But if they align with the values, you get them on board. Yeah, you're going to have amazing results. So I totally buy into that. And that's why, that's what I saw in your workplace, the love that your people had for you. It came from because you had love for them. You cared about them. You took care of them. And so they always had your back as well. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Any
Sam,
other specific questions? Put them in chat or raise your hand. We're happy to accommodate. All right.
let's start with this slide, or move towards the end rather with this slide. If leaders could leave with one message about ethics and culture, what would you suggest it be, Sam?
To me, I asked somebody that was CEO of an organization once. It was a small organization. They only had about 135 employees. And I said, do you have an ethics and compliance officer? And I knew the answer because it takes a certain size organization to be able to have someone that in that role, that specific role. And he looked at me and kind of shrugged his shoulders like, what are you talking about? And he threw his hands up and he said, everybody. That to me is what the message that I would want to put out there is that everybody is in charge of ethics. And the leader needs to paint that picture. The leader needs to continuously put that message out there, support the message, not just in words, but in actions. Cull stories, accumulate stories of where ethics showed up, where decisions that were made were ethical decisions that were made, even though it cost the organization money. You get these stories, put them out there, share them, teach. And yes, leaders, I'm looking in the chat, leaders have to draw the line. You and I can't do this, Tom. It's not up to you and me. That ultimately it's the leader of the organization has to say, this is how we do it here, period.
Sam, this next question is perhaps my favorite question in this entire presentation. And I say this because we have had one academic study in the corporate world which it started off looking at hotline reports because the professor doing it thought maybe that might be interesting to see if he can get any data. And what he found stunned him, because not if a company had a hotline, but if they had a true culture of speak up, meaning employees felt safe and empowered to speak up, and equally importantly, management listened up, not only did the companies have a lower instance of ethical violations, fines, penalties, and even lawsuits, but they had a greater profitability because employees fostering that culture of speak up brought forward more ideas, brought forward more innovation. We're not afraid to suggest new ways of doing things. So I use that as a way to introduce how can employees at all levels play a role in this? And maybe I've suggested the answer in the question itself. Nevertheless, to me, this is what it's all about, because the words employees at all levels. So just maybe get your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting when you talk about a speak up culture, and we talk about it with respect to ethics, but what happens is when you make that a reality, and you touched on this, and I think that's the point. When you make it a reality, you train people that it's not just okay to speak up. That's how we do it around here. It's you don't have to worry. You're not getting penalized. It's the right thing to do. It's the positive thing to do. And what happens is it goes beyond ethics, as you talked about. So all of a sudden, people are sharing ideas and creativity and ways of improving products and ways of reducing safety challenges. And you have all this positive that's coming from it. I think creating a speak up culture is incredibly powerful. But here's the one caveat, Tom, and I think that it's important to know this. I've seen leaders who say, I have an open door policy, and I've even had one CEO take the door off his hinges, so that to impress that he had an open door policy. But not everyone communicates the same way, Tom. And this is something I've learned over the years. And so I might be willing to come into your office and share something with you that I don't think is right, but maybe Sally isn't, or Bill isn't, or whoever. And maybe they need you to go to them. And so as a leader, it's imperative that we don't just wait for someone to come to us. But you know what? If you come into my space, you pop your head in my office, my cubicle, my bench and on the shop floor. Sam, how's it going today? What's happening? What do I need to know about? You're out here all the time. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And you start building rapport with me and asking those questions, that's going to build a speak up culture, because I might not be willing to come in to you. I might not come to you. And that's really important as a leader. Some people will come to us, but there's some people that we need to go to.
And Sam, we have a question really that perhaps we could leave with our audience, or those who may hear this podcast, or rather this webinar on an audio, which is, ask yourself, what decisions in my organization of today are rewarding results over values? And if you ask yourself that question enough, I think that you will get answers both internally from yourself and from those around you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
So with that, Sam, maybe we could say a few words about the culture audit. We've referred to it a couple of times already in today's presentation, but this is a risk management strategy and a culture risk management strategy that I used. And I wanted to just reiterate that the culture audit can help in the assessment. The assessment can give you a strategy that you can move forward on. It can help you with insights to implement that strategy. If you use the culture audit on a regular basis, you can monitor your strategy. Then you can improve based upon the data in the monitoring phase. So the culture audit, Sam and I would love to talk to you about it or show you if you so would like to see it. But this is a tool that Sam's developed, and I've worked with him on to move forward into the compliance community. Sam, any last words?
Just, if we measure and we have data, we know what's going on, and that's the beauty behind the culture audit. And so on the next slide and the slide after that, I know you're going to have some contact information. Anyone that really wants to measure their culture and have more information, reach out. We'd love to have that conversation, and that data is going to position any leader to be able to make the very best choices that they can make. The bottom line is this: if you want to close the divide between culture and ethics, is first of all, we need to create a powerful, positive, sustainable culture, one that over time is going to attract and retain the best people. And next, in addition to that, alongside it, at the same time, we need to put that stake in the ground, Tom, that we operate here under the highest of ethics, and anything that would deviate from that would be a reason for immediate dismissal. Whatever it takes to make something right, we're willing to do, and we want you aligned with that. And I think that people like that environment. People enjoy that environment. They don't feel pressure, the pressure that comes from when their values don't align with what's being done within the organization. And when a leader steps up and makes those decisions, then they're going to have an inherently better organization. And the culture audit can help any leader create a better organization.
Well, Sam, I wanted to thank our attendees from today's event. Here's our contact information. We're happy to speak to anyone. I hope you'll join Sam and I again next month, where we take up another issue related to culture, values, and ethics.
Absolutely. And be sure and share this with your friends. You'll get a link for a replay. And the more people that hear this message, the more people will be able to step it out, and we can build better cultures and a more ethical society.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.